All right, welcome in everybody. It is Biscuits and SEC Live, January the 28th. We are fresh into the offseason, but do not fear. We have a jam-packed show for you. We'll be going back over some of our 2025 season predictions for half the SEC, as well as handing out grades to one another for said predictions, and then team grades for how they actually do. So that is exciting and should be funny to see us eat some crow here, as well as gloat in some instances. We're not perfect, but we're also not fully imperfect. So we got some right, some wrong, but should be fun to rehash that. We're also going to talk, of course, about the Dabo Swinney, Pete Golding. Reminds me a little of the Jimbo Saban saga from years ago, although waiting for Pete to clap back, which I suspect he won't. Given what I've seen from Pete so far, he doesn't seem to really care at all about any outside noise, which is great for him. But I would love to see a rumble in the jungle of sorts between Pete Golding and Dabo. So if Pete wants to fire back, that would be great for us. Would love to talk about it. But of course, we will talk about that whole feud and tampering and the portal and just kind of the state of college football, as well as basketball, college athletics as a whole, with all the kind of madness going on around the portal and transferring and eligibility and guys coming from the G League and Europe and whatnot to play college basketball. So again, a lot to get to. We're jam-packed. Thanks for joining us. Boss man, how you doing?
I'm good, man. It is good to be here. Good to talk some football, even though, man, the dreaded offseason is here, but still plenty to talk about. Give our offseason grades or give our 2025 season grades at the start of the offseason. So I'm excited about that. We did this last year, and it was a good time. We got a little twist on it here. As Hammer said, we're going to talk a little bit about – I'm going to give Hammer his grades, and he's going to give me a grade for what our preseason predictions were like. Going through them, I think, we got some way off and some we were spot on. So it's going to be fun to go through them. We'll go through 8 teams this week, and then we'll do part 2 next week, and we'll go through another 8. I think if we did it would be a marathon show if we did all 16. And there's a little bit of news we got to get to as well. So going to be a fun show, and looking forward to it.
Absolutely. Well, let's get right into it. Of course, we're brought to you by the Steer Agency as usual. So appreciate those guys for the continued support of the show. Forgot to mention this, so I will real quick before we get into it. Sign up for the newsletter, biscuitsandsec.com. Coming to you every Wednesday morning now during the off season. So back to our once a week cadence, but of course it is free. Just keeps you up to date with all the goings on in the SEC and around the college athletics space as a whole. So we get a lot of really good feedback on that, and would appreciate if you guys would sign up and at least give it a try. Can always unsubscribe if you don't like it. Let's get into it now, though. So let's start with I guess we're just going to get right into grades. So as you mentioned, we've got half of the SEC teams to go over tonight. And first up on the docket, sorry if our friend Mike Huseman is joining, but it is South Carolina. So without further ado, the 2025 season grades for South Carolina, who finished 4-8. I don't remember what they were ranked preseason, but I think they were pretty, at least after a couple games, they were somewhere around the 12, 13, 15 range. So had high hopes, high expectations with Lenore Sellers and Nick Harbor and some of the guys they had coming back, but kind of stumbled through the entire season, finishing 4-8. So as a team, Biscuits and SEC is giving them a D- based on, again, I think the preseason expectations that they had, and not even to make a bowl, not even get close to making a bowl. Pretty dang disappointing. Just looking back to give you an idea, their preseason win total over and under was 7.5. So they missed that by a mile. So yeah, I don't think there's any way to sugarcoat it. A bad season in Columbia for Shane Beamer and the Gamecocks. So we gave him a D-. Probably could have gone with an F based on expectations, but also, it's South Carolina, so not to be rude, but 4-8 seasons aren't that uncommon there. So we shied away from an F, and I do still like Shane Beamer. I'm glad, that he didn't get fired or anything like that. I think he's a good coach. So we'll see what he can do next year. But a D- for the 2025 team there. So I guess, yeah. So now I'm assigning you a grade, and you are assigning me a grade. So my grade for you, gosh, I'm all over the place. My grade for you was a C, because you had predicted South Carolina to go 7-5. So you hit on the over and under, going under at 7. So I got to give you some credit there. And although you missed it by 3, I think, to give you a little grace early in the season, despite your 7-5 prediction, that was kind of going against the grain. There was a lot of people that were much higher, and I know you had a spat online with some Gamecocks fans on X, the Everything app, where you were saying if there's a team that is poised to disappoint based on expectations, it's South Carolina. And you were right about that, although you were a little off on how bad it would go. You were pumping the brakes preseason. So I'll give you a C there for, recognizing that maybe they were a little overhyped, but obviously still, coming up a little short in terms of the overall win-loss that they ended with.
Yeah, I think it's really hard to get an A+, and it's really hard to get an F, right? There are teams that are going to get Fs, but you got to be pretty dadgum bad, right? Like historically Vanderbilt bad, or recent Arkansas bad, or like stuff like that. So just to put that out there, that's kind of why they get a D-. Man, it was close to an F, but get a D- because you at least get 4 wins on the board. Probably their best win of the season against Virginia Tech, which was game 2 of the season. Worst loss, I would say, was Clemson, 28-14. You lose at home to Clemson, probably one of the worst Clemson teams that we have seen in, maybe 15 years, 20 years. It's been a really long time since Clemson was as bad as they were this year. It's 7-5 was my pick, and you're right. Yeah, I did have that. I went back and forth a little bit. It was Ghost, who covers Texas football. So if you go check out Ghost on Twitter, I replied to his tweet in the preseason. He asked, based on expectations, who do you think might be someone who underperforms expectations going into the season? And I said South Carolina. And I just said, I'm not sold on this offensive line. I'm not sold on what Shane Beamer has done. And he's got the main folks back, right? Like, okay, Nick Harbor has to take a big step. We talked about that in the preseason. You had Lenora Sellers back. But I wasn't sure if they could replace Rocket Sanders. And then the offensive line has been a problem. I was also worried about Kennard. You lose Kennard. You had the double-headed monster with Dylan Stewart and Kennard last 2 years ago. And a lot of that came to fruition. So, pat me on the back for being right on that one. But yeah, I didn't think it was going to go as bad as it did. I still thought this was going to be a 7-5, 6-6 type of team, at least stay at 500, maybe one game over. And that was not the case at all. This team was very bad. So I gave you a D on this one because you had them at 8-4. And so, 4 games off, man, that's rough. You were not much higher on the Gamecocks than I was. But at least by a game, you were drinking enough of the Kool-Aid to still think that, hey, this team, it's Lenora Sellers, right? He was a preseason Heisman candidate. Totally get where you were coming from. You were still, you're pumping the brakes based on preseason expectations, towards what the national media was thinking, number 12 preseason, et cetera. Well, they wouldn't have finished ranked at 8-4, but still. So maybe I was a little harsh on you, but I think a D probably is fair.
Well, to add some more context here, not that I'm happy with a D, but at the outset, as you mentioned, I missed it by 4 games. That's a third of the season. So very, very far off. So hard to argue with the D. I also, to throw myself under the bus, I have to go back and look. I'm 99% sure I had Lenora Sellers as my SEC Offensive Player of the Year. So my thought process, if I recall, was South Carolina is going to struggle more than people think, but they're going to win, enough games on his back, on his arm, that they'll have no choice but to, give him the SEC Offensive Player of the Year. And that didn't even come close. I don't put it all on him, but he did not have a good year, and that offense was putrid. And Mike Shula is no longer the offensive coordinator as a result. So I was quite far off on my South Carolina predictions. So I'm begrudgingly accepting a D there, because I'm not sure how you could get much better, I guess. All right, well, let's go to the next one. I'll let you start us out. We'll go to Oklahoma. You can talk through this one.
All right. So the Sooners this year overperformed expectations for sure, based on, what were they, 6-6 2 years ago?
Yeah.
So 6-6 2 years ago, Brent Venables on the hot seat going into this season, and they get John Mateer, they get Arbuckle at offensive coordinator, they rejuvenate, through the transfer portal, and there's a lot of hype going into the 2025 season. A lot of hype, but still people kind of saying prove it, right? Like they weren't they were pretty highly ranked still, but at the same time, I feel like most of the college football public was hesitant on them, and that was reflected as well in you and I's win totals for them. You went with them 7-5 in the preseason, and I said I went 8-4. So we were kind of pumping the brakes a little bit too. I just wasn't sold yet on John Mateer, right? Like, I don't know about John Mateer. I'm not so sure with Arbuckle. We've got, Brent Venables here. His back's up against the wall. I like Brent Venables. I think he's a great coach. We said that going into this year, but still a lot of unknowns, going into 2025. And what do? They go 10-2, make the college football playoff, and 100% earned an A for the season they had. Now, Oklahoma Sooners fans probably would maybe give it a B or a B plus, because at Oklahoma you play for national titles, right? And I know it's been a long time since they won one, but they won a ton of Big 12 titles before they came to the SEC. This program plays for titles. So overall, though, from where they were 2 years ago, 6-6 to now going 10-2 in the playoff, Brent Venables in 1 year rejuvenates them, gets a win over Alabama on the road, in the regular season. Isn't able to get it done in the playoffs in the first round, but you got Mateer coming back next year, et cetera, et cetera. We'll get into all that later in the offseason as we get closer towards the 2026 regular season. But for 2025, definitely an A for the Oklahoma Sooners. And I gave you a C for yours, since you had them at 7-5, 3 games off on what they ended up being at 10-2. So yeah, I think that's a pretty fair grade there. The Oklahoma Sooners definitely overperformed expectations in 2025, at least for me.
Yeah, I would agree. And again, I'll accept that grade. I think, I was 3 games off, so I was definitely undershooting what they turned out to be. To give us both some credit here, Oklahoma's over-under to begin the year was 6.5. So we both hit the over there. We're in the green. We'll have to put together a graphic maybe for next week or even the following week of our over-under predictions, because we actually did quite well on those. We would be in the green, winning money from Vegas. But so we were both, a little higher than Vegas. I think, going back to it, it's funny to think back to August, because my hesitation with Oklahoma, similar to you, I wasn't totally sold on Mateer, but I did feel that they would be much improved. I didn't expect another 6-6 year. But looking at that schedule preseason, everyone kept saying this is a gauntlet. They're not going to be able to get through it. Yeah. And I definitely bought into that. That's why I said, hey, they're going to be improved. But, man, the schedule is crazy. but it ended up not being as hard as some thought, right? You think of Auburn turned out to not be good at all. Tennessee turned out to be pretty average, right? They got the big win against Alabama, which was big for them. So yeah, I mean, I'll take a C on there because I was off by 3 games, but definitely, Oklahoma impressed me. I gave you a B minus, so a little better than me. But again, I feel like we were kind of, drinking out of the same water there, just that we were both slightly higher maybe than Vegas, but certainly neither one of us saw them going to the college football playoff and hosting that game. So I gave you a B minus. Maybe that's a little harsh, but I think I don't know, that could be harsh, but 2 games off, I feel like it's hard to give a real solid grade. Although again, to give you some credit there, that was well above their preseason win total. So again, maybe I was being a harsh grader.
Yeah, I might petition the dean on that one, but it's close. It's not like, it depends on if it allows me to graduate or not, or if my GPA is good enough or not. Because that one's borderline.
Well, where I come from, C's get degrees, so I'll take a C and move on, and I think you should be happy with your B minus. But moving on, let's get to the Auburn Tigers. So Auburn finishes at 5-7, of course, fires Hugh Freeze. They have not had a winning record, I believe, or been to a bowl game since the Gus Malzahn era, if my memory serves. So been a rough stretch on the Plains. We'll see if Alex Golesh can turn that around moving forward. But for 2025, we gave them a D. And I think, man, it's funny, again, thinking back to preseason stuff, because Auburn, well, their preseason win total was 7.5. So there was some decently high expectations on the Plains. Certainly mixed thoughts on Jackson Arnold, but there were a lot of people that thought he could have a very good season. He did not. And Hugh Freeze, I think, pretty clearly showed what people like you and I, and people that, were calling this stuff out for the last couple of years, feared, and that is it's passed him by, right? I'm not an X's and O's guy. I'm not going to break down film and tell you where his offense is lacking or outdated, but it's one of those things, it when you see it. And for whatever reason, they had a ton of talent. They had Cam Coleman, Singleton. You saw it the game after Freeze got fired. They score 40 points or whatever on Vanderbilt, still lose the game, but they had some firepower there, and it's just a really, really bad season. And I think a lot of that, all of it really falls, on Hugh's shoulders as the main offensive play caller.
Well,
or at least 1/3 of the offensive play callers. Just a disorganized season, kind of from the get-go, and things kind of fell apart. They got lost, on the Plains, and so I think a D is fair there. I mean, anytime you don't make a bowl game in Auburn, you're looking probably best case scenario at a D, because it's pretty inexcusable to not make a bowl. So Auburn Tigers get a D. I gave you on this one, I handed out an A because I believe you were pretty dead on. You had them going 6-6. So here's where I gave you, some props. And again, to give us credit here, we both were correct on the over/under win total. Neither one of us had them winning 8 games, so we would have cashed in on the under 7.5. But again, I think coming into the season, when I think back to it, I'm giving you an A here because 6-6, even though that wasn't exactly correct, was pretty low on what a lot of people were thinking Auburn would be. It was pretty well, hence their win total. Like, people thought, since they had been going 5-7, hey, this is a 2 to 3 win improvement of a football team. and you were like, yeah, no, like I think they'll get to a bowl, but that's about it. And ultimately they didn't. But I'm giving you an A because I think you were kind of spot on that Auburn's just not going to be very good this year, and they weren't.
Yeah, I just wasn't buying it. Like show me, right? Okay, you've got more talent. Cam Coleman in year 2, like Hugh's been building to this year. He's been building to this year, and it was like, okay, but then, and I remember saying this, like I was not totally done with Jackson Arnold, right? Like I don't think Jackson Arnold. I think Jackson Arnold may still have some in the tank, right? Like he was ranked a 5-star for a reason. We talked to Stephen Willis, right? Our friend from Locked On Ole Miss, and he had said he was one of the best quarterbacks he'd ever seen at one of the Under Armour All American game or the Army one, whichever one he was at. He was like, the kid was unbelievable. So I didn't think that Jackson Arnold would be like the downfall here, but I just didn't believe in Hugh Freeze at all. It's like, look, they got all this talent, but like I've seen it for 2 years. And the guy who keeps making the boneheaded moves at quarterback with Peyton Thorne, didn't go get somebody after year 1 of Peyton Thorne. And like the offenses looked anemic, and he's supposed to be an offensive guy. We see flashes of it every now and again, like I guess 2 years ago when they played Arkansas and blew them out like 48-10 or whatever. Like, okay, there's something there, but like every other game we see, it's like, where is the offense?
Yeah.
So I just wasn't sold on it. And so, going into the year, it was like, okay, well, show me. Until you show me, like I'm picking you to go 6-6. And I thought they'd make a bowl. And, to give both of us credit here, though, at least a little bit, I gave you a C+. You picked them to go 7-5. That one was probably a little harsh. I probably could have given you a B there for this reason, because me picking them at 6-6, you picking them at 7-5, and what they did go 5-7. I feel like even at 7-5 where you picked him, or 6-6 where I picked him, Hugh Freeze is probably still getting fired. So
true.
I think we were pretty, on with that. I didn't, we didn't think it would go as bad as it did. But yeah, I probably was a little harsh on you on your C+ grade, but the Kentucky loss was just totally inexcusable. I mean, obviously,
yeah.
Freeze gets fired after the Kentucky loss, but like scoring 7, that was it, right? It's like you score 7 points. Was it 7 or was it 3?
3, I think.
10-3.
3. Yeah.
Like you scored 3 points. You didn't even score a touchdown. Like at home against Kentucky, who's terrible. They're not good. They're very bad. This is one of the worst years Kentucky's had in the entire tenure of Mark Stoops. And you score 3 points at home. You can't even score a touchdown. And you're the offensive guy, right? Like you're not a defensive head coach. You're an offensive head coach. And you're scoring 3 points at home. Like it was really bad on the Plains this year. And he whiffed. I mean, the big thing, right? We talked about it during the season and late in the season when it was obvious. You whiffed on a quarterback 3 times.
Yeah.
And you know what? Even still, I'll say, I'm still not sure that Jackson Arnold is like the worst quarterback ever, right? Everybody's dogging on this kid and everything. I don't think that he got very good coaching at Auburn. Like you watch the tape, all this stuff, like the breakdowns on YouTube and all this, and Aaron Murray breaking it down and Max Brown breaking down and some of these others, and it's like whoever, like this offense was just completely discombobulated, disjointed. The coaching wasn't very good. So poor kid, he made a bad choice in coming to Auburn. But at the end of the day, he didn't get the job done. Hugh Freeze is out. And 2025 season grade for Auburn. Not good.
Yeah, not good at all. I think we'll do a bit of a verbal meme here, but to close this out for Auburn, back in October, I don't remember what game this was after, but we put up a tweet with a GIF of Tobias Funke from Arrested Development in the shower, sobbing with, throwing the shower head, just sobbing uncontrollably. And we tweeted DJ Durkin putting up great defenses every year, but having to deal with Jimbo Fisher and then Hugh Freeze in their trash offenses. And like you said, I think that kind of sums it up because the Auburn defense was pretty good for the most part. They had some bad games, but by and large, the issue was the offense. And if Auburn could have scored a little bit more in every, a couple of these games, they probably would have, gone 6-6, 7-5, 8-4, but they did not. So Auburn gets a D. Continuing through the just kind of slew of bad teams, the only one that overperformed so far is Oklahoma. We're going to now go to Fayetteville, who also fired a coach, and I will let you detail fairly self-explanatory why they have an F.
Yeah, it was pretty pitiful. Pittman pitiful. That's what it was. Poor Sam Pittman. I love Sam Pittman. We've talked a lot about him. He was a Muschamp Coach of the Week, and we sent him off in style during or after week 4 or week 5, whatever it was, after they got absolutely curb stomped by Notre Dame. But yeah, the Hogs came into the season with a little bit higher expectations, not super high expectations. They had an absolutely massive amount of turnover in the transfer portal, which was the second straight year that had happened at Arkansas. However, you had Taylor Green coming back, and you had some talent that you felt like you might be able to do something with, right? Like, I felt like going into this year that the ceiling for them was 8 wins, and that was going to be tough to get to. It's going to be a stretch, but I felt like there was something there where they could potentially get there. And then the floor was what happened. And they hit the floor, and they, early in the season, they weren't looking that bad. I mean, they actually felt like they had some momentum and were looking fairly good. And then they get the win taken out of their sails against Memphis when you have that big lead against Memphis, and then you have a fumble at the end of the game, and then you can't stop the quarterback on 3rd and 11 or 3rd and 9, whatever it was. To get the win or to get a punt to them and go back down and try to score. I mean, I think that completely – it just – first of all, it was an encapsulation of the Pittman era. And it was like in one game just, mismanagement, clock problems, fumbles, turnovers, like you name it, missed tackles, like all of it in one game. Came to fruition in the Memphis game, and then it did it again, came to fruition, and the whole thing imploded against Notre Dame. And you're watching, and Sam Pittman knows he's getting fired at halftime, right? It's like it's over. So yeah, it was an unfortunate year for the Hogs, just a real tough one. But you go 2-10, no SEC wins, yeah, that's going to get you an F every time. So I gave you a C- here. You picked Arkansas to go 5-7, and I picked them to go 6-6. Gave you a C- here. I felt like, that one maybe isn't harsh enough. I don't know, but you were 4 games off here, but I don't think I gave you a little bit of grace here because I don't think anybody thought Arkansas was going to be 2-10 this season. Sam Pittman in his first year went 4-8 with Arkansas, and I just didn't think that he was going to go worse than that. And he didn't even get a chance to because he gets fired, after week 4 or whatever. So anyway, I didn't see it imploding as bad as it did, and you didn't either. But I give you a C- here for picking them 5-7.
Yeah, again, I think similar maybe to the the Oklahoma one, like I had the right kind of sentiment, the right feel. It just, in Oklahoma's case, went much better than I thought, and in Arkansas's went much worse. So Arkansas's preseason win total was 5.5. So I did hit the under there. But again, I was 3 games off. I definitely didn't see them with Taylor Green, Bobby Petrino. I didn't see the bottom falling out. And you'll probably see that theme again as we this week, next week, and maybe the week after kind of wrap up 2025. A lot of certainly mine, I think you're kind of in the same boat. I thought the SEC was going to be a lot more kind of packed in the middle, and you were going to get a lot more parity.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we saw that, certain teams maybe jumped up that we didn't expect, but I didn't see the SEC teams getting 5 teams in the playoff. I didn't see them having all these 10, 11 win teams. And then the teams like Arkansas kind of on the bottom of the barrel. I thought there was going to be a lot more 4-8, 5-7 teams and 8-4, 9-3 teams. And instead we got more 11-1, 10-2 and more 2-10, 4-8. So Arkansas was one of those, unfortunately. And I gave you a D here because you had them going 6-6. We're a little bit higher on them. Just I don't know. Again, it's hard to root against Sam Pittman, and I was 5-7, you were 6-6, where we're basically right there, and that didn't come. But obviously, you were slightly more believing, so I had to give you a D there for being 4 games off on the prediction. But again, I don't think you go back to all preseason stuff. I don't know that anybody thought it was going to get that ugly. And as you said, the Memphis game really set it off that way. Nobody saw them losing to Memphis, although it was kind of a trap game. You just don't see that coming.
Well, and not in the way they did either, right? Like you blow a huge lead. You have multiple opportunities to get the job done and finish the job, and you don't get the job done.
Yeah.
And then the wheels fell off.
And if you recall the game before that, they lost to Ole Miss in basically the same way. They didn't blow the lead against Ole Miss, but they had the ball at the end of the game in field goal range, and they fumble and lose the game.
Yeah.
So two weeks in a row, week 2 and week 3, Arkansas thinks they're going to win the game, fumble the ball, and lose because, of course, they do.
Yeah, that's the truth. Our friend Mike Huseman has joined the chat. He said, notice how we didn't talk about the Arkansas D at all. The Biscuits guest pickers could have ran for 100 yards on them. That is the truth. If you were going to pick one of our guest pickers to run against it, I would have picked Stingray. He's my running back, and he 100% would have run for 100 yards on Arkansas.
Well, and Cornbread is the fullback. I mean, Cornbread, I hope you're watching, but Cornbread would have been absolutely pancaking some of those linebackers and defensive backs from Arkansas. Do not get in Cornbread's way when he is, lead blocking through the A gap. That's a bad idea. So, defense. It was a disastrous season. So, let's move on. Mississippi State. So, not a great season, of course, going 5-7. They get an invite to a bowl game thanks to various teams like Notre Dame and Iowa State and some other, opt out of the postseason teams. But 5-8, 5-7 regular season was a big improvement from Mississippi State because they were 2-10 the year before and didn't win an SEC game. So I gave them a B. We gave them a B. Maybe a little. I don't want this to be insulting to Mississippi State fans because let's say we're in year 4 of Jeff Lebby's tenure. If he goes 5-7, he's not getting a B, obviously. I know, 5-7 is not the expectation there and is not a good year. But I feel like we talked about this a lot, but I just want to, continue to emphasize it. Like the situation he took over after Mike Leach passes away, they go to Zach Arnett, and then Levy gets the job, after Arnett last one season. It was a complete mess. So for him to go from 2-10 to 5-7 with some really high points in getting an SEC win against Arkansas, beating at the time a top 15 Arizona State team. Of course, the Sun Devils kind of faded, but at the time, getting that big win at home, the cowbells going crazy, the field storming, and improving the overall win total, from 2 to 5, I think was a very good coaching job from Levy and his staff and a good season. Again, we know how things work in the SEC. That's not acceptable long term. That won't be acceptable next year. But where they were going into last year with an over-under win total of 3.5, I mean, nobody was expecting much out of them. For them to get up to 5 wins, I think deserves a B. So we were happy to see that out of Starkville this past fall, and hope that Levy can improve there. I handed out a B for you here, because you had them going 3-9, so you had them hitting the under. You were not buying into the Levy hype train, and again, I mean, maybe that's even lenient to give you a B.
That's lenient, man.
Yeah, but it's hard to say that, because it's like, well, they still went 5-7. So again, all that stuff I said about how much they improved and all this and that, it's like, well, they still went 5-7. Like, it's not like they had a great season. It's not like they did amazing things on the football field. I mean, they had some close losses, Tennessee in overtime, Texas in overtime. So they were competitive, but I struggle to really penalize you there when they went 5-7. So I don't know, some inconsistent grading perhaps by me, some lenient, some harsh.
Yeah, well, same thing's going on here. That's why I thought it'd be fun, was to grade each other's performance for the preseason. It is not easy to do that. I think our friend Rivers Huey, would be happy. Our Hale State friend. With the grade that we gave them, I think it's fair, because I think you just summed up kind of how Mississippi State fans are feeling. It's like, we went 5-7. That's an improvement. Like, we feel a lot better than we did 2 years ago. However, the losses were so deflating, and we had them. Like, we had 3 teams like right there. And so I think if you lose by, 2 touchdowns to Tennessee and 10 points to Florida, and who was the other one they lost to? Texas, right? If you don't blow a 31-17 lead against Texas, or whatever it was, 38-17, it was just the way they lost those games put a pretty bitter taste in your mouth, even though there was a big improvement. So we had them, I think, originally at a B+, and I was close to giving them an A. I was kind of like, do we give them an A? But then I thought about it. I was like, you can't give anybody an A for 5-7 regular season. I didn't go B+ either, because I was like, it just seems too high. And also then, just what I said, right? It's the way they lost those games left a really bitter taste in those Mississippi State fans' mouth, especially to lose at home to Texas in the way they did. And then, but you got to take the good too, right? Like, there was some good. That game against Arizona State, number 12 in the country, college football playoff team 2 years ago. You got to be happy about that, right? That's a big step for Mississippi State. And they looked really, really good in that game. The other thing I'll say about it too is you got to remember what happened going into the season, right? In the transfer portal. This was another big turnover year in the transfer portal, big time, right? Jeff Lebby, when he came in, it was just wipe it clean, basically, right? A whole new roster, essentially. Well, that pretty much happened again coming into this year, and they lost some big pieces. President Van Buren, who played, 3/4 of the season in 2024, he goes to LSU to be the backup. You also have Mario Craver, who goes to Texas A&M, and this year balls out, one of the best receivers in the SEC. So you lost some big pieces from that team that you had when you first came in, and then you bring in a bunch of new guys. You do a very good job, frankly, in the transfer portal, and you see a 3-win improvement to get to 5-7. So there were a lot of good things you can take from this season. Also, in the way they lost, you just really, kind of like, knife to the chest for Mississippi State fans. So it's a mixed bag. And so I think the best top end we could give them is a B, because like you said, that's not the expectations either. And the expectations will rise now again next year because of this improvement. So I think a B is totally fair. And I gave you what did I give you? I gave you an A, because you picked them to go 4-8. And so they were 5-8, right, with the bowl game, but 5-7, you were one off. And you were not that high on them, but you were higher on them than me. I was poo-pooing them like, 3-9. The roster overhaul was too much for me.
Yeah. Well, I'll have to go back and check the tape, because I do remember. I don't remember if I actually picked them in the moment, but I do remember preseason pointing out that Arizona State game and saying, I'm just saying, It's week 2. Mississippi State's going to be 1-0. It's going to be in Starkville.
No
Early
Scatabo.
season, wild things can happen. Yeah, no Scatabo. So, again, I don't remember if I had the stones to actually pick it in the moment, but I do remember preseason saying just watch out for that game. So, yeah, I think I'll take an A there. I think, again, I wish I had gotten it right at 5-7, but I do think coming into the year I was a little higher on, the Bulldogs, and obviously, cashed in my over and under there with them going over 3.5. So I'll take that. Let's keep rolling along here. We'll go next to the other Columbia. And actually, real quick, I do just want to call this out because this is a great comment from our friend Mike. Back when we were talking about the running backs and the fullbacks, Mike's throwing out little boss man. He wants to hand the rock to little boss man and let him run for 100 on Arkansas's defense. So
that guy would go for 200. He's a big Ravens fan, by the way. So big Derrick Henry acolyte. He watches YouTube videos of Derrick Henry all the time. Guaranteed 200 on that Arkansas defense from little boss man. Good call out, Mike.
That is a good call out from the guest picker vault. Yeah. So. Yeah, let's get to Mizzou. We got 3 more left, so we'll kind of get through these before we get to the next part of our show. Gave them a B. I don't know. Maybe that's a little lenient. I mean, they had won 10 games 2 years in a row. Check me on this, Mizzou fans. I think the 10 games, they won 10 games 2 years ago. The year prior, I think they won 9 regular season, but then won 10 in the bowl. But still, had 2 back-to-back very good years with Brady Cook and Drink and kind of that crew, Luther Burden. But I don't know, man. Again, maybe this is lenient. I think if you go 8-4, especially with the losses that they had, I just mentioned Brady Cook, Luther Burden. That's a pretty good year at Mizzou, in my opinion. I know, again, it's the SEC. Expectations are high. You win 10 games a couple of years in a row. People want that to continue. But I thought Drink did a good job. The games that they lost, yet again, for the most part, were close. They lost a close one to Alabama at home. They lost a close one to Vandy on the road. They took care of South Carolina. So – I think overall like a B. Again, 8-4. That's hard for me to give a worse grade than a B to Mizzou. To give you again some context here, Mizzou's preseason over under was 7.5. So they cashed in. They got the over. So again, I think a good season there. I know Mizzou fans 8-4 is not what you're looking for, but frankly, I think a coach can stay at Mizzou a long time if 8-4 is kind of the average year. So we'll give them a B, fairly average season in Columbia. I gave you a plus on this because you hit it on the money. 8-4. You were a little higher on them than me preseason. And I mean, if you guess it right on the money, that's pretty self-explanatory. So A+ for you.
Yeah, I give us a little bit of credit. You were a little bit lower than on Missouri than me, so you were expecting a little bit more of a regression, which is why I gave you an A- since you picked him at 7-5. But at the end of the day, you hit on their losses, right? With the bowl game. So we were spot on with Missouri here, and the part of the reason I think is because well, first of all, just to touch on this quickly. We gave him a B overall with the full Biscuits rating for the 2025 season. I think part of that too is because Missouri's expectation is higher, right? So now we're judging them on Missouri's expectations. And yeah, there was a lot of things that, were a little bit different this year, and you lose
Brady Cook, Luther Burden.
Yes, Brady Cook. You lose Brady Cook. You lose Luther Burden. You lose Theo Weiss, right?
Yeah.
They lost a lot from that team. However, even still, it's kind of like this thing, and we've been saying this a lot too. We said this a lot preseason. Trust Drink, right? Hey, at the end of the day, trust Drink. He's gotten you to 10 wins 2 years in a row. So but even with the whole trust drink thing, like that was what we were worried about coming into this year was, all right, you got to replace Brady Cook, right? Who, he's kind of okay, and people aren't, too super excited about him, but he just wins games, and he's been a great quarterback for Missouri, and he was for 2 years. So Brady Cook is gone. You got, we mentioned all those Theo Weiss, right? Luther Burden, all these people were gone. So I was just worried about reloading on that front. And you get Bo Pribula, but he was a totally unknown, commodity, right? It's like, okay, he looks like he's talented, but I don't know, who knows?
And he got hurt a little bit too. He missed 3 or 4 games. I don't remember exactly how much. So,
yeah, so that could have played a factor too, right? So I think we nailed it right on the regression. And there was not a lot of people, I don't think, that were picking him around that, right? I mean, I have to go back and look. But I think most people were on the trust drink, right? Like, okay, like they're going to be 9-3. They're going to be, maybe competing for a college football playoff spot at 10-2 or whatever. People were high on Pribula. Well, they just paid $1 million to get Pribula, right? He's got to be good. And so we were a little bit lower on him. I think this is probably the one. There's a couple others that we did pretty daggone good on, but if you're talking about ones that we hit the bullseye on, we hit the bullseye on Missouri.
Yeah, we did. Well, another one we hit the bullseye on, I'll let you intro this, and you can, I think I put this grade together, so if you disagree, let me know. I really waffled on this one. Maybe Rick will have to help us in the chat, but Alabama.
Greenbow, Alabama. What a good movie. Yeah, so we gave – this is kind of wild. Again, Missouri, we give them a B, right, for going 8-5. Alabama gets a B+ for going 11-4, making the college football playoff and making the SEC title game, right? So that if that looks a little crazy, well, you have to think about what are the expectations at that school, right? The expectations at Alabama are national titles. And the way that they lost some of these games, the way that team looked, there was a lot of kind of gritting your teeth in Tuscaloosa this season. And, it didn't work out exactly as Tide fans would expect. So even at 11-4, making an SEC title game, making the college football playoff, you get a B+ overall from the Biscuits team. I think that's pretty fair. You're on the edge of an A, but you don't get an A at Alabama for making the second round of the playoff. You probably get an A if you make the college football playoff national title game, win or lose. But that's it. The expectations are high for a team that had 2 of the best coaches of all time, coaching for them in history. So anyway, but we pretty much nailed this one. Like you said, 10-2, I think. I'm trying to remember here. We've got the graphic here. So this was our pick for the SEC title game preseason. This was the graphic we had preseason. We picked Alabama and Georgia. I picked Georgia to win it, and you picked Alabama to win it. So we were dead on the money that Alabama was going to be in this game and make the college football playoff, right? I think this was got our playoff graphic here somewhere. Here it is. This was our SEC playoff teams that you and I picked preseason going into it. I had Alabama in there, 10-2, nailed it. Had Georgia in there. I had LSU in there, did not nail it. But you also had Bama in there. You had Georgia in there, and then you had A&M in there. And like you said at the start of the show, we didn't think there was going to be 4 or 5 teams get in from the SEC. Well, that's exactly what happened. But to take it back to Alabama, we both picked them to be in the college football playoff and the SEC title game. So overall, a good season. I gave you an A for this one because you picked them at 10-2, picked them as the SEC champ, and so you were right on the money on it. Preseason picking them 10-2, bam, bullseye.
Yeah, like you said, 10-2, and I struggled with what grade to give them because there's a lot of positives. They made the playoff, they won a playoff game, made it back to Atlanta, but then some negatives in there with just the way they lost to Indiana, the way they lost to Georgia, losing to FSU, kind of a black eye because they didn't turn out good. So ups and downs, but again, zoom out, big picture. You go 10-2 regular season, go to Atlanta, win a playoff game. Like, that's a pretty darn good season. even by Alabama standards. Certainly not an A. The expectation is titles, but pretty darn good overall. And, Kalen DeBoer, the end of the season was rough, but seemingly steadied the ship, right? There was a stretch in there late September through October where people kind of thought like, all right, we got our guy, we're beating Tennessee, we're beating Georgia. Like this is the Alabama that, we expect. And like I said, it didn't quite last the full season, but, solid season. And again, credit to us for both kind of nailing it. We both picked them 10-2. Over under was 9.5. So we got there correctly, and both had them, going to Atlanta. I had them winning. You had Georgia winning. So you nailed that one. But I think that's a good one. We can pat ourselves on the back for having a good read on Alabama. I got to run real quick. There's an emergency going on in my kitchen with a mouse. So I'm gonna let you take over the Ole Miss. I'll be back shortly, but I've got to go attend to this mouse that is screaming in my kitchen. So
all right.
Thank you all.
He'll be right back. Okay. So whatever he's got going on, that is going to be an all-time blooper on Biscuits and SEC Live history. When we go back through when this sucker's all said and done, which hopefully is many, many years from now. But yeah, keep this one in mind. We're going to cut this clip for the screaming mouse in Hammer's kitchen. Maybe it's Chuck E. Cheese. I don't know. All right. Ole Miss, 13-2. Heck of a year for the Rebels here. I know a lot of you are watching us on Stephen Willis's feed. So thank you guys for joining us. But yeah, Ole Miss, we wanted to get to them tonight. We also wanted to talk about your rivals tonight as well. So we talked about Mississippi State a little bit earlier in the show. Now we get to Ole Miss and the Rebels. Man, what a year. 13-2, college football playoff, Trinidad Chambliss, Kawan Lacey, the whole thing. I mean, there's player after player after player you can name. Suntory Perkins, just go down the list. It was an incredible year. Best year in Ole Miss history, I would say. I think most of you would agree with that. 9-3 is what Hammer picked him to go preseason. I also picked him to go 9-3 preseason. I just thought, I think I kind of drank the Kool-Aid on, teams that lose a bunch, right? Like Ole Miss. Oh, that's Hammer. Add to the bloopers there. His empty chair. So Ole Miss lost a good amount, right? You lose Jackson Dart. You lose a bunch of the guys off of that defensive line. You lose Walter Nolan. Last year's team was supposed to be the team that did what this year's team did. And so you have all those guys who go to the NFL or leave through the transfer portal or what have you. And so you got to reload. And you knew that Kiffin was the portal king. And sorry to mention persona non grata now, but he was your coach at the start of the year. And going into this year, he's the one who built this team, right? And he did a good job again through the portal of getting, guys like Trinidad Chambliss, right? Like he wasn't expected to be the starter going into this year. It was supposed to be Austin Simmons. But at the end of the day, he's the one who identified him, and you get Trinidad Chambliss, and Trinidad Chambliss goes off and goes on a tear through this whole season. And you end up 13-2 in the college football playoff and on the cusp of going to a national championship. And if the ball bounces your way, or if you get a pass interference call at the end of the game, you may be in the national title game, and you probably would have gotten past Miami. So it was an incredible year for Ole Miss football. Loved watching this team play. But yeah, going, preseason coming into this year, you're thinking that this team is very talented. They still have a ton to play for, the lot out in front of them. They're going to be very good, but are they going to be good enough to get to the playoff? Are they going to be good enough to get to the quarterfinal, to the semifinal? Or are they a team that's, 9-3 and it's kind of like a bridge year for Kiffin, right? Like, okay, this team's really good, got a lot of talent, but then it's going to be the next year, right? Like look towards 2026. That's going to be the year that they really put it together. And turns out it was this year. And Trinidad Chambliss, took you guys on a ride. And it was an awesome season to watch. It was a lot of fun. So, all right, I think we got Hammer back here. I'm gonna add him here. Oh, you got to unmute yourself now.
I am back. Yes. We got the mouse.
You saved him.
Yeah. Yeah. We saved him. We saved him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry.
Well, we couldn't hear him. So we're glad that you saved him. PETA will not have to be called tonight. And I was just talking about how Ole Miss, what an incredible season they had, right? We're talking about the Rebs, and going into this season, folks thought they were going to kind of take a step back, right? And you and I did, barely, right? Like, in last 2024, they were 9-3 as well, right? Missed the playoffs because of that, because they have that late loss against Florida. This season, I'm thinking they're about the same. We didn't think that they were going to take a step back to an 8-4 or anything like that. Lane Kiffin just wins games, right? At the end of the day, he's proven that he wins 9 or more. And so you and I both put them at 9-3, and we kind of thought they would stand pat because of everything that they lost, right? So I went through Jackson Dart. They lose Walter Nolan. They lose a bunch of the talent that, last year's team was supposed to do what this year's team did.
Correct.
And so we kind of thought that they would stand pat there at 9-3. So, for Ole Miss, I'm trying to remember here. What was it on our graphic here? Yeah, A+. Yeah, you get an A+. I mean, this is the best season in Ole Miss history, right? Again, as we talked about, for the expectations at a school, right? Missouri, for this year, the expectations now at that school are to be better than 8-4, 8-5. And so they got to be this year. Well, at Ole Miss, best season in school history, even if you don't win a national title, that gets you an A+ every day. And so I think it's an A, especially too, right, when you consider everything that they went through at the end of this season. Yes. With the whole last month of the season being the Lane Kiffin, will he, won't he, what's he doing drama that he drugged this team through, to then have Pete Golding step in very quickly, right the ship and get it back in line and take the helm and put it, back on course to get them to where they were, to within, a couple centimeters, an inch, and maybe a pass interference call and a couple bounces of the ball their way from getting to the national title game. This was just an awesome season for the Rebs. I was rooting for you guys. I was hoping that you guys would get to the national title game and have a shot at Indiana, but just didn't go that way.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I mean, I don't know how it cannot be an A+. Now, again, expectations change, and we'll see what happens with Golding. Maybe a repeat is not an A+, but for now, nobody saw Ole Miss preseason going to the semifinals or going 11-1. I mean, again, you got to give them credit. Their over/under win total was 8.5 in preseason. They win 11 games, and just like A&M, you don't end up going to Atlanta due to tiebreakers, but that was just because it was kind of a wonky year in the SEC. I mean, you go 11-1 overall and 7-1 in conference and don't make Atlanta, really through no fault of your own. And the game that they lost at Georgia was really stinking close, and they avenged that loss in the playoffs. So they did everything right this year. And like you said, it just kind of came down to that Miami game, to a couple bounces here and there, and Carson Beck making a play late, but they were inches, seconds, whatever you want to say, away from getting to the title game. So that's a heck of a season in anybody's book, but especially for Ole Miss when you look back historically at where that program has been. So that's all for our grades. So again, we will do the remaining 8 SEC teams next week. A little bit of extra football for you this week. I know we want to kind of just get to the madness of the Dabo Swinney going after Pete Golding, Darian Mensah to Miami. There's a few things we want to touch on, and then we'll close out with our Muschamp Coach of the Week and Biscuit of the Week. So the Dabo thing, again, we're already hitting on an hour, so we'll try to keep this fairly brief here. But obviously, we have to mention this. I mean, this was crazy. First of all, to just listen to that press conference and hear a coach go after another coach in that way, but also, for me, I know we probably got a lot of Ole Miss fans watching. I think this was much needed, and I hope the NCAA. I actually saw something from Stuart Mandel that this is considered a level 2 violation, so most likely like a coach suspension or something. Which
speeding ticket.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which, look, I'm not here to be the judge on this. I don't know what the right penalty is, but I do think, and hopefully Ole Miss fans, y'all will agree, it's just high time that this got policed. And Dabo finally called out somebody by name, brought receipts, and said it with his chest. We'll see if he actually has the receipts that the NCAA can use, because I believe there's some confusion there as to whether he actually has the text messages or just has, what he was told was on the text messages, in which case I don't really know that you have a case, and maybe the NCAA won't be able to do anything. But tampering is terrible. Ole Miss fans, your entire roster was tampered with by Lane Kiffin. I don't blame Pete Golding for acting the way he acted, because given the situation, I would probably do the same. You're tasked to do a job. There's millions of dollars on the line. Everybody's doing it to you. You just play the game. I would like to say I'd be better than that, but I probably wouldn't be in that situation. So I don't fault Golding for what he was doing. But again, we need some enforcement and policing here, and I think it would be better for everybody involved if something came of this, because you just should not be able to do that, right? A kid is signed, enrolled in classes on campus. You shouldn't be able to do that. And unfortunately, right now you can, and there's no enforcement, but nobody's been willing to call somebody out like Dabo just did in front of everybody with, again, supposed receipts, and at least calling him out by name with a timeline. So I applaud Dabo for doing this, and I do hope something comes of it, because I think if that's the case, then maybe we will see more of this. And again, to put myself in Golding's shoes, if he were to get punished for this, I hope that he would then turn around and lay the evidence out he has against Lane Kiffin, because I guarantee you there's plenty of it.
Yeah, for sure. I see this from both sides a little bit, right? I mean, one thing, right? We just talked about the expectations, right? We said, okay, this season for Ole Miss was an A+. Well, what if they do this again next year? Is that an A+ season? No, because the expectations have been raised, right? It's probably an A season. Maybe it's an A- season, right? But it's still going to be a good season. But like each year you do this stuff, right? And now the expectation level at Ole Miss, not just from this season, but from the fact that Lane Kiffin, up until this season, right at the end of the year, won 9 or 10 games a season consistently at Ole Miss, right?
Yep.
That's the expectation level. So Golding comes in here, and he is supposed to maintain or improve on that expectation level. And everybody knows too, right? Like everybody was talking about during the Lane Kiffin stuff. Keith Carter's a gangster. Keith Carter's the man. Keith Carter's a great AD. I fully agree with that. He's a great AD. The Grove Collective does a great job. The Grove Collective puts plenty of NIL resources behind Ole Miss. So the expectation levels are 9, 10 wins, college football playoffs, right? And everyone around me, including the guy who was at my school and left to go to LSU, is trying to poach everybody on my roster, right?
Yeah.
And so everybody except for Dabo Swinney, pretty much.
Right, which is the problem in this case.
Exactly.
The one guy you can't – one guy who doesn't have a skeleton in his closet is the guy you messed with, and he's not afraid.
Right.
He's not afraid.
Exactly. So you might have messed with the wrong guy in this situation, but at the end of the day, too, all these programs have compliance departments, so they know. I know what this is, right? Oh no! If Dabo does this, right? Like, what's the opportunity cost here? I get a linebacker who could get me, again to the college football playoffs, who could keep me at these heights or get me over the hump after I lost my top linebacker, TJ Daughtery,
to LSU
by the guy who is tampering on my roster. Correct. Like, I'm trying to maintain this level of success or get better. And this kid could help me get there. And if I mess with this bear, Dabo, with no skeletons in my closet, what is the cost if he does do what he just did, right? Or if he goes to the NCAA? I get suspended for 2 games. Worth it. Sign. Where do I sign? Right? Like, who cares?
Yeah.
So I don't blame Pete Golding for it, and everybody else is doing it. So this is not at all a shot at Ole Miss. But I do think Dabo was in the right here. Like, it's time for somebody to step up and say, enough is enough, right? This is ridiculous. And so, to some degree, it does feel like the old man yelling at the clouds, and that the game has passed him by, right? Like, for better or for worse, this is the situation that you find yourself in. And this is how everyone is dealing with it. Everyone knows that everyone is doing this. And it's the old, the meme or that episode of The Office where they're all in the break room and they're sitting there, and then they all pull up the guns and they point them at each other. We're doing this, put them down. Everybody looks at each other, and then you do it again and you put them up, right? Nobody's going to say a word. Nobody's going to pull the trigger on this stuff because everyone is doing it except for Dabo Swinney.
Yeah.
So maybe that's why Clemson isn't doing as well as they should be. Maybe that's why they don't dabble in the portal as much, because Dabo just doesn't like this stuff. But this is not college football, even from from 2019, from 2018, before we had the portal and NIL and all this stuff. This is a completely different ballgame. And everyone's playing this game except for him. So there's a lot of different factors here. We need a lot more enforcement. The tampering has got to stop. It's also something about this really is hurting the product, right? And I think we can get into Darian Mensah here as well, okay, at Miami, because you just had the situation with Ole Miss and Clemson, right? And what's the linebacker's name again? The kid from Cal?
Luke Ferrelli.
Luke Furtado.
Yeah.
So Luke Potato ends up going to Ole Miss, and he's already enrolled in classes at Clemson, right? This is crazy. Like, it's not good for the sport, for fans of this sport who follow it closely, right? I'm looking at this stuff that happened in Miami. It's very similar, right? Duke signed him to a 2-year deal. Widely reported that this was a 2-year deal for $4 million. So he gets $2 million per year. He has a great year, a pretty good year at Duke, gets them to the ACC title game, right? Even though they were 7-5 or whatever. Yeah, somehow the ACC puts them at whatever. Whole nother story. But anyway, it's so obvious that he's getting tampered with, right? But Duke, even though there's a contract in place, really has no recourse.
Yeah.
I mean, they take him to court and they settle, right? But who knows what the settlement was, but they can't really do anything about it. They can't enforce this contract because it's not really a contract, because these people aren't employees. And so he can just go and do whatever he wants. And then he goes, we have to say it's a visit to Miami. And then they commit like 4 hours later, him and the wide receiver.
Yeah.
Like, come on, guys. I mean, we all know this was tampering, right? And it's not healthy for the sport. I think most fans are getting very turned off by it. You'll never lose me. I'm a college football fan for life, right? And we've talked about this. You're not going to lose me. I love college football for so many reasons. But I don't like this. I'm pretty done with this. Isn't the sport that I grew up loving. This isn't the sport that I, am a diehard fan for. And I think there's a lot of people that are like that who feel the same way. Like, look, we understand that my team's tampering. All of us understand that our teams are tampering, but I don't like that. I'm pretty sick of this whole thing where it's overt,
Mm-hmm.
So I do think that we need some enforcement. I think that, one thing you mentioned this pre-show, I think you need to talk about this, because there is no, we've talked about how this is the Wild West for a long time, right? Well, the Wild West is still happening. And I think there's even some more crazy things that are probably going to come down the pipeline here, because there are rules, but there are no rules, right? And everybody's challenging them. And we've got the Bediako situation with Alabama, right? And the kid who's going to Baylor, who played in Europe or played in the G League. They've signed multiple contracts with professional leagues, and they're joining teams mid-season. It's crazy. But I want you to lay this out, because I haven't heard anybody talk about it this way. And I think it's a really interesting point. And I think this is kind of where we're headed. And there's a couple good examples, like a Lenora Sellers or a Cam Coleman, right, or others. But lay out the point you made to me before the show.
Yeah, well, it's sort of just going off what we just said, where this scenario with Ole Miss and Clemson in this instance, or you name, Miami, Duke, anywhere where tampering is obvious.
Yeah.
And the NCAA doesn't do anything, even though it's on the rule books. Again, that just emphasizes the fact that there are no rules and there are no repercussions. Next step, you get guys who have signed professional contracts coming back to play college basketball in the middle of a season, not even preseason, middle of a season. So my thought was, what happens when somebody challenges the transfer portal windows that we have set up and just leaves mid-season and then enrolls at another school? Or doesn't even enroll. I mean, again, because why do they have to go to class? Carson Beck wasn't going to class, at least in the last couple games. I know he was in class in the fall in graduate school, but at that time. So, yeah, my example was, a Lenora Sellers or a Cam Coleman this year. Their season not going great. Mid-October, what is stopping them from not just leaving, because guys do that all the time now, which is another thing I hate, but they leave mid-season and say, I'm done, I'm hitting the portal. Even though I can't hit the portal yet because the window, I'm off, I'm done with the team. And I might practice, but I'm not going to play because I got to preserve my red shirt, or I'm just out. And, you'll see my name officially pop up in December when it opens, or January now, I guess. Either way, what's to stop a guy? Like, would the NCAA be able to prevent a guy from doing that midseason, but then saying, and I'm going to go play somewhere else because I'm Lenora Sellers and, Missouri is 6-2 and their quarterback just got hurt. I'm going to go play there because I think we can go 10-2 with me and go to the playoff. Would they win in court? Would the NCAA be able to stop it? I don't know. It doesn't feel like it at this point. And so that is something that worries me, one, but B, I think is just something that could pop up because every single time the NCAA, A, doesn't do anything, or B, loses in court, it just emphasizes the fact that there are no rules. And if there are no rules, what would stop a kid from doing that? And I'm not sure there's an answer at this point.
I don't know if there is either, right? I hadn't played out that hypothetical yet in my head because I think, our minds are still kind of in this framework of there are laws, right? Like there are things that we have to play within these certain bumpers, and we're still kind of updating the software of like, no, like there are no guardrails, zero. We have these, the NCAA committee's doing this and the committee's talking about this. And like, maybe we're going to, we're going to change the portal window and we're going to change the calendar. We're going to do these things. Well, yeah, who's to say that stuff isn't going to get challenged? Like, why would it not? Like, I 100% could see that happening in the middle of the season. That would be, devastating for a team, right? Or what have you. Like, again, this Mensa thing shows these contracts aren't enforceable, right?
Yeah.
So if I'm not going to name any players. I don't want to piss off anybody, but like big time quarterback, XYZ quarterback at a school who is not having a good season, or it goes bad early, right? You're 2-4 or you're 2-3. You expected to be 5-0. You expected to be 4-1. To say, no, I'm not going to do this. And I need to be playing with guys who are going to get me good tape because I want to go to the NFL for that next big contract. So like, yeah, actually my contract that I signed in the offseason actually is just not worth the paper it's written on. And so I'll see you guys later. And I'm going to transfer to in-conference rival. I'm going to transfer to Duke because they had their quarterback get hurt in the third game and they need a quarterback and they want to make the ACC title game again. Right. Like, yeah, I'm worried about that. No rules.
I know. And I can see it playing out where, again, there's outrage, some guy tries it, there's outrage, there's pushback, and there's a lawsuit, and then they lose the lawsuit because it's like, this guy's not an employee, and you're preventing him from making money at his new school, right?
Yeah.
School X that he's trying to go to in mid-October is offering him $1 million to play the next 6 games to finish the season, and you're preventing him from making that $1 million. How can you do that? He's not an employee.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe there is some academic stuff that we're, unaware of. But again, who cares? They would just challenge that too. They would say, we're not, that would just get lumped into the court case. And they would say, I don't care about academics. I'm not a student athlete. I'm a pro athlete. And this school's trying to pay me this much money, and I want to go make that money. And legally, I don't know what ground you have to stand on to prevent that.
No, I think that's right.
So hopefully we don't get there, because I'm with you. I'm a diehard. You won't lose me. You might lose me if that starts happening. If you start losing, I mean, this is already pushing me.
Yeah.
But come Saturdays in the fall, I'm there. But
right.
This stuff is annoying. You know, what Dabo laid out and what Pete Golding could lay out about what Lane Kiffin's doing, it's garbage. It's total garbage. And it doesn't belong in college football. There needs to be rules where if you sign, you're signed. At least for like whatever it is, agree on it. I don't care what the actual structure is, but agree on it and enforce it so that you don't get situations like this. Because that's the other thing that gets lost in all this, whether it's Darian Mensah or Carson Beck or Luke Ferrelli or TJ Daughtery. Like, I don't blame the kids in this situation, man. Like I texted, you and me and a bunch of other guys in a group text the other day. I was like, dude, if I'm 19 years old, Luke Ferrelli, and I get a text at my 8 a.m. class for $1 million contract, dang right I'm out. Like, you're absolutely right. I'm taking that. And then it gets up to 2 years, $2 million. Like, yeah, man, I'm out. Dude, so I don't put it on the kid. It's just, you shouldn't be allowed to do that. Coaches should not be allowed to act in that way. And we got to get some guardrails and rules enforced here. Otherwise, it's just going to keep snowballing. And I think you're headed for a bad place. So that's my soapbox for the night.
Yeah, it is going to accelerate. I mean, this offseason showed that it got even worse. Like last offseason was crazy enough. This offseason, and it's just going to continue to accelerate, right? I mean, put aside the Golding thing, right? Like Mensah here with Miami, that it's inexcusable. It's wrong. It's wrong, period. What happened to Duke? They have a contract in place. I mean, this whole thing is like, early on, I want to say like in the 80s, right? There was a lot of stuff going on. There's all sorts of NCAA sanctions and the death penalty for SMU and all this stuff, right? To some degree, that was like, it's always been an honor among thieves thing among coaches, right?
Yeah.
But that was like low level pirating. We're now at like Blackbeard level pirating, right? Like this is like serious honor among thieves stuff that is like, it's totally wrong. But each year in these off seasons, it's accelerating. It's getting worse, right? And we saw this with the Mensah thing. We saw this with persona non grata, for Ole Miss fans, LSU, with the way that Lane Kiffin, he's got Sam Levitt on campus, and in the meantime, he's tampering with DeMond Williams at Washington, who's also under contract, who then is like, oh, never mind, deuces. Like they're going to offer me $3 million at LSU. I don't have a contract now.
Yeah.
I don't have a contract. I signed it, but it doesn't matter. Like I don't. So yeah, I don't want this to continue to accelerate. And that's kind of where we're at, is this is going to continue to snowball, like you said.
Yeah, no, agreed. Well, I think this is a good transition because unsurprisingly, this is related to our Muschamp Coach of the Week. So we'll close it out here with our final two segments, our Muschamp Coach of the Week, our Biscuit of the Week. You put together the Muschamp Coach of the Week, and we have a very special announcement as well. So for anybody who's new here, we got 200 of y'all watching. Appreciate you joining. January 28th. It's awesome that y'all are wanting to talk ball with us at this time of year. So we appreciate it. We've been doing a Muschamp Coach of the Week since the beginning of the show. So I guess we've done 70 at this point, as this is our 70th show. And it is an homage and honor to Coach Muschamp for the passion and the fire that he shows as a coach. When we began the show 70 weeks ago, Muschamp was not really around. He was an analyst at Georgia, not on the sidelines, not in the public eye. And we missed him on the sideline. So we implemented this again to honor him. And he's back now as a defensive coordinator at Texas. So we felt it would not be right with him back on the sideline and him being back in the public eye and probably screaming at people every Saturday to, have an award named after him when he's still out there doing what he loves and, just around, right? Nobody's missing him. He'll be on the sideline every Saturday. So we wanted to rename the award, and I will hand it over to you to let the people know what the new award will be called and who the first winner of that award is.
Absolutely. So we've been talking about this for a couple weeks because of Coach Muschamp taking the Texas defensive coordinator job. And as many of you know, who watch us often, Aggie grads here, right? So promise there's no bias here, but it did hurt us. It, hit us in the heart when head coach in waiting, Will Muschamp, took the job at Texas to be the defensive coordinator. But no bias. It isn't about bias here. He's active again and going to be on the sidelines, going to be much more visible. And this really, we like to honor the coaches, right, who are not active on the sidelines. And so the award we felt like should be named after somebody who is no longer an active coach. And unfortunately, this man is no longer an active coach because he was just the best. I mean, there are so many quotes from this guy that I still to this day talk about, especially about the fat little girlfriends and about your wedding, the Alyssa Lang Halloween candy. I mean, they're the pirate, swing your sword, right? Like the mascots going through the Pac-12 mascots. So if you don't know who it is by what I just mentioned in all those quotes, Coach Muschamp has entered the transfer portal, and we are transferring this award now to the main man, posthumously, Coach Mike Leach. This is now going to be called the Leach. The Leach. Round of applause, absolutely, for Coach Leach. I love this picture. Found the audio again. The
hit him with the gong.
Yeah, hit him with the gong. But Coach Leach would love that, by the way.
He would.
But yes, wanted to do a new award name for this. Muschamp signs off. It is now transfer portal alert. It is now going to be called the Mike Leach Coach of the Week, or the Leach Coach of the Week for short. And that picture of Coach Leach with the mustache that Gardner Minshew slapped on him when he was at Wazoo, just no notes, 10 out of 10. Absolutely love it.
R.I.P. Pac-12. R.I.P.
Yes. And R.I.P.
Coleman. R.I.P. Coach Leach.
Yeah. So we absolutely love Coach Leach here. We have for many years. In fact, if you go back in the annals of the annals, I don't know.
Annals.
The annals. Go back in the annals.
Nice.
Go back in the annals of SEC Live.
Not the other thing, the annals.
Yeah. I'm going to get a lot of help for that one. Go back in the annals of Biscuits and SEC. Go to biscuitsandsec.com, or you can search it, Mike Leach, biscuitsandsec.com. And former writer for us, our good friend, the Waco Kid, he wrote a great tribute to Coach Leach after he passed away. And one of the first articles that we ever wrote on biscuitsandsec.com was on Coach Leach. So he has been around for a long time for us. We have a lot of respect for him. Absolutely love him. So for the first Leach Coach of the Week, we gave it this week. There was really only one person we could give it to. I felt like we've already talked about him, but there was two runners up here, and we're starting to get into basketball season here. Coach McMillan, Bucky McMillan for A&M, had a pretty funny quote here. I almost gave this one to him for this one, but he said that A&M plays mother-in-law defense this week, which means they play defense that is constantly nagging and harassing, which is a pretty good quote. So that is a Mike Leach coach, if I've ever heard Mike Leach type of quote, if I've ever heard it. So this close to giving Bucky McMillan the main one. But then also Sean Miller, he was our other runner-up. He said that Texas has a virus called fouling. We will foul the shit out of you. So he said in his press conference. So another one, very Mike Leach-like. Those two were runner-up this week. But Mike Leach, also known for a tirade here and there. If you've ever watched his speech after the A&M game when he was in the locker room, known for a tirade and known to get very animated at times. Well, this guy this week, our first Leach Coach of the Week award winner, got pretty animated. So here it is.
To be honest with you, this is crazy. To me, this situation is like having an affair on your honeymoon. That's basically what we're dealing with. And I know for a fact that this is happening at other places. Because you know why? Because I've had a bunch of coaches over the last week that have reached out to me. And they're going, well, let me tell you what's happened to me. Let me tell you what I know. Let me tell you my story. I've had a lot of people reach out with their stories. And so I want to challenge all of those coaches that have reached out to me. I want to challenge all of them. You need to step up and call it out. Otherwise, don't complain. You either step up and you be an example to young coaches in this profession and be people of integrity, or just shut your mouth and don't complain again. That's what I would say to all the coaches out there. Because I know this has happened, and we're never going to get this under control until we start having some consequences. We're just not. It's just that simple.
All right. So all you coaches out there, stop talking to your fat little girlfriends. Stop talking to your fat little, your fat little cousin over here. Get out of the shed and say something about what has been going on with tampering. Okay. So that is Dabo Swinney. We talked all about it on this show. We thought he was correct in this instance. We understand what Pete Golding's doing, but it's time to get some enforcement here. And I think Mike Leach would be on his side.
I think so. And that was the best part of the whole rant. The specifics of the Ole Miss Clemson fiasco aside, that's the best part, because Dabo had just finished calling Pete Golding out, and he goes, quit complaining to me. Quit complaining. Yeah. If you want to make change, puff your chest out, be a man, and call people out, or don't complain. And he's spot on. Again,
yeah,
agree or disagree with that. Like, I don't want to hear another coach whine about tampering unless they're going to call somebody out by name and turn them into the NCAA, because it's not going to stop unless you do something about it. And like he said, be an example. Be an example.
And great quote at the start. Very Mike Leach-like quote. This is like getting cheated on in your honeymoon, right. Like this is an affair on your honeymoon. So,
right.
Anyway, congratulations to Dabo Swinney on winning the inaugural Mike Leach Coach of the Week award. We will be sure to get him the certificate in the mail and the trophy in the mail here within the next 5 years.
Indeed. Well, let's finish it off with the Biscuit of the Week. We also do this every week. We love biscuits here at Biscuits and SEC. We love Southern culture, Southern food. So we highlight a biscuit every week. If you would like to be featured, shoot us a DM on social media, drop us an email, contact@biscuitsandsec.com, and we would love to feature you. This week came from none other than our brother, Chuck Biscuit, who, leading up to the Snowmageddon that was bearing down on him in Western Virginia, in Crozet, Virginia, he went over to a local haunt that we all enjoy, the Brownsville Market, as you can see, an Exxon gas station there. That is your classic Southern gas station that serves a ton of food all day long. It's under the hot light all day. You can go pick up your breakfast biscuits here like he did with the sausage, egg, and cheese, bacon, egg, and cheese combo. They serve fried chicken. They serve chicken sandwiches, burgers, you name it, fries, onion rings. Walk in there, grab you a lunch, grab you a breakfast. It's great, great stuff. And I highly recommend it if you find yourself in Western Virginia, the Brownsville Market.
Yeah, that is, he's got a sausage one there, and I think it looks like bacon, egg, and cheese too. So
yep.
Sausage, egg, and cheese, bacon, egg, and cheese. Yeah, I have had many a breakfast biscuit from the Brownsville Market. Used to work at a moving company when I was a sophomore in college. I was at home for a summer in Charlottesville and came back and worked at them. And that moving company was 5 minutes down the road from Brownsville Market. So I would stop there very often. Very good biscuits there. Highly recommended. I know it's off the beaten path. It's in a rural part of Virginia, outside of Charlottesville. But ever get the chance, if you ever find yourself on the back roads of Virginia, Brownsville Market is absolutely a place to stop. Fantastic biscuits there, and that's definitely a Virginia thing. I mean, we've featured the market. It's called the Market. There's multiple of those around Charlottesville. The Bel Air Market is one of them, and that's kind of a Virginia thing. Obviously, Southern thing for sure. Gas station biscuits, definitely a Virginia thing to have these like colonial looking kind of gas stations. and have these biscuits that you can get in them. So yeah, it's well worth the stop.
Indeed. Shout out to Chuck Biscuit. Well, thanks everybody for joining us. We've gone way over tonight, so we appreciate all y'all. Got over 200 of you tuned in. As a reminder, After Dark Network, we will be on SEC After Dark tomorrow, Thursday, 9 Eastern. Offseason After Dark, our friend Mike Huseman, Tuesday mornings. And Bama After Dark with our friend Jake Thomas, typically coming out on Tuesdays. Regular guys on a hiatus, but we're part of the After Dark Network and would love it if you would check out the other shows. That will do it. I've got to get going, and we've gone 90 minutes. So appreciate y'all tuning in. For Boss Man, I am Hammer, signing off. Appreciate y'all.